All right, welcome back to Danish Rift Rundown. We're here on our second episode of the show. Joining us is Theodore, our top laner, here once again, and then we have the amazing Danish caster, the best one in the region, in my opinion, Duckling, and Ag0nypain, the clown on your screen. Right.
Hey.
How you guys doing today? Feeling good?
Yep,
Yeah,
yep. Chilling.
doing
Feeling?
good, doing good. It's vacation in Denmark for those of us who either go to school or work in the school environment. I'm a substitute teacher now as well, so I still get those good vacations. So I have the week off. It's good to just relax a bit. It does get a bit tiring spending all day around 10, 12-year-old kids who just yell all the time. So it's good to have a break.
So now you spend your times looking at OPGGs for potential subs coming in, right?
Just not looking at OPGGs. Time to do some scouting.
How are you doing, Agony?
I'm fine, I'm chilling.
You got your first win in the NLC, feeling great?
And yes, absolutely.
Awesome, awesome. Theo?
Yep, just chilling as well. Enjoying
Mm.
vacation in Denmark for sure. Substitute teacher as well, so benefits of that are quite good. So we are enjoying that right now for sure.
Yeah, winter fair time. Gotta love it. Right. So today we have our amazing guest with us, and I just want to talk with you guys about your road because like a lot of people want to like they aspire to potentially get to an ERL1 or ERL2, right? And they might just have the question, or I'm always saying with the question, okay, what was your journey like, right? So I'm just gonna start off with you, Duckling. Like, where did you start off? Were you already determined to be a caster from the get-go, or did you try to play or be a player on a team first, and then?
Yeah, I mean, I've always known that I've had the ability to talk very quickly and talk a lot. And when I was younger and realized I wasn't good enough at football, I decided, I want to be a football commentator then. Then realized that was kind of hard, and I obviously gained a big hobby for League of Legends. Started playing that since I was 9 years old. I mean, I did reach diamond when I was 14, and I thought maybe I want to see if I could reach challenger and play in a team. But then at a local LAN tournament, they needed casters, and I was like, sure, I'll try this. It was even for Counter-Strike. And when I tried that, I realized this was really fun. I want to do more of it. And then I from that point onward decided that casting was the way I wanted to go instead.
Yeah, I mean, but a big thing that you just said that you start off with football, right? I feel like a lot of people going into the scene, like they have some sport that they have done before or something where like they have this competitive sense, right? I mean, even for casters, I could just imagine that like that competitive sense has to be there, right?
I mean, I think it's a drive as well. It's
Yeah.
less competitive, but more determination and drive that you need to have as a caster. Because, I mean, obviously we are casters competing for the same spots, but we don't hate each other. We don't have like fierce rivalries with other casters. They are my colleagues, and we help each other improve and get better. But you gotta have the drive and determination you would have if you were playing competitively to continue to fight against yourself. You could say to just be better and take that next step forward, because it's not satisfying if you go into a cast, you feel bad, you feel like you've done a bad job, and you are not better than you were 2 months ago or 3 months ago. You constantly want to try and improve and reach the new highs where you watch the watch and you're like, this call, I really like how I did this. So you're more so competing against yourself to always move forward and never backwards in your craft.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you said that was it like that tournament event where they called for a caster? That was that Red Bull?
I don't know. This was small. Like, this was small local. We have
Okay.
a youth school. Like, we have that in this. I don't know if we have that in other cities in Denmark. But this was like a club, for esports, and they were holding a LAN tournament with a Counter-Strike tournament there, which was actually decently priced considering it was a local LAN with like 100 participants. And then they openly put out the call. We're looking for someone who goes to the school there to help our cast. And I went there weekly to play League of Legends in a team environment, actually, more for fun team, but we were still competing. And I messaged them like, hey, I really want to do this. And even though I didn't play much CS back then, I still don't play that much, but I have spent a couple hundred hours in it. They let me do it. And from that point, I got the drive. I did it for free. I think they actually gifted me like a headset they had left over after the tournament as a thank you. And then it just ignited the fire in me. Like, this was really fun. I loved that. I want to do it again. And then for free, I found someone on Reddit that was Square One, who wanted to start up an amateur tournament before Riot decided to shut all those down. It was it was a tournament with teams as well, not for fun but more serious. But it was still for free. I did it for free, and I messaged the guy completely blind as a 15-year-old, like, hey, I've done this Danish tournament where at that point I was filled with voice cracks. Can I do your League of Legends tournament with zero experience and a voice in puberty? And they somehow thought it was a good idea to give me a shot, and they did. And I gave it my all, and it all started from there.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a sort of interesting road because I feel like a lot of people have to take those shots in the dark, especially early on. It doesn't matter if you're a caster, a player, right? When you're in this competitive scene, like unless you're willing to take that first step and just throw yourself out there, you're not going to get those opportunities, right?
It's I think that's actually like a crucial point you're hitting at, because you have to put yourself out there, and that's probably the scariest thing. It's always taking the first step, right? I was really nervous. I remember when I wrote to the school, like, hey, I saw you guys need someone to do this. I'd love to do it. I was nervous as hell as well when I reached out to the Square One guys. I was a 15-year-old kid. I found this post on Reddit about a tournament that needed help to be ran, and I was like, hey, they needed help, and still I was scared to put myself out there. But I got through because I knew the feeling of casting was so fun. I wanted to do it again. But that is the hardest step, putting yourself out there, because you're especially at the beginning not that confident in your own ability. You don't know if what you're doing is good. You don't know if it's bad, and it's obviously it's obviously tough having people judge you in that way, because you're sending in your own resume, and if they don't like you, they wouldn't reach out in return. But you lose nothing from trying. And putting yourself out there is the only way, I think, to get started in esports.
Yeah, I mean, especially like, yeah, I have sort of a coaching background, right? And the first time I put myself out there, I was just messaging around to just see if there was any team who wanted to, like, an untested coach, right? And it feels like if you're not willing to take a chance, it's hard to start off. I mean, like amateur league, it is out there, and there are some for fun tournaments, like amateur tournaments out there still being held, but it's like not, or from my experience at least, like people just put up spreadsheets and throw in some names there and do some customs, right? And that's the amateur tournament. But yeah, I mean, it's a good way to start off, just to build a resume. Like,
it is, I think it's the only real way to start, because people really value that as well. I'm starting to learn that in the real world as well. Putting yourself out there, even if you aren't too confident in what you're doing, might be the right thing, or you're the best at it. That's the only real way to get started, because otherwise they won't know your name, they won't know you're interested, and eventually they wouldn't end up hiring you, and it will be just what could have been, instead of what it turns out to be potentially.
Yeah, obviously.
I also think it's really interesting to hear how, like, the process of becoming a caster is much like the process of becoming like a player. Like, taking this first step and throwing yourself out there is always the hardest thing, of course. And for sure, I could see myself in a lot of the things you talked about, with just messaging people where you don't really know where to start in the beginning. You don't know who to message. And you just gotta start somewhere and message some people to actually get your name out there and give yourself a shot. So I think it's really cool how you can, like, see the same things from going shooting your shot for becoming a caster, and also like shooting your shot for becoming a player. So yeah.
I don't know if it's the same for Ag0nypain, because I mean, Ag0nypain, for you, right? I first remember your name from when a couple years ago you got through Red Bull solo queue, and how you absolutely smurfed it there. But was that your like first step into competitive play, or where did you begin?
Yeah, it was my first competitive play. I started out with solo queue, basically just one tricking till Challenger. I felt okay. Then I think it was before Red Bull Solo Queue, I don't remember if I get the first to Challenger, but I think it was around the same time.
Around the same time, I remember as well.
I think actually it was a little bit before, if I remember right. But yeah, then people started knowing me. I was streaming a bit. Then, of course, the 1v1 Red Bull tournament was like really. It was like the first competitive experience, and it was also on stage, so that was like kind of a pressure. Then I realized basically a bit from that I need to expand my champion pool, because I can't just play Kiana Kassadin if I want to either win a Red Bull tournament or if I want to go play in a competitive team. So basically one day when I was just like chilling, I looked my Twitter messages, and I saw some guy wrote me if I would like to join a team, and that is how I started my career. Someone wrote me, and I joined DMG Esports.
That was
That was a long go.
yeah. Just to give him a shout out, because we talked about him last time as well. That was Stiegel, right?
No, it was Kicker. Kicker.
Really, it was Kicker.
Yes, I think so. I think maybe the mid laner dropped out or something, so they needed a mid laner.
Ah, right. Because that was before that was at the time I left the Norwegian scene.
Yeah. So basically, he wrote me if I would like to join a team, and I have been like thinking about joining a team, but it was really hard only playing 2 champs to join a team. So from there, I started breaking like majors basically. Then I had 3 month trip to Korea with some other streamers, and from there I basically just ran it down in Korean solo queue with majors and learning from that.
Yeah, I mean, how's your stay in Korea? Was it just like at a hotel and then go to internet cafes, or?
So there was like, I was with different streamers like Elo Santa, Elite 500 and stuff like this. They were living in their own, almost like a house, I think, or apartment. But me, Potent, and Trissy, we went to like a small motel kind of thingy. I think like we just had a room with internet. Potent had his own PC with him. I think Trissy also had his PC with him, but his screen broke in the transportation. So he also had to like go to internet cafes like me, which was the plan from the start, because I didn't want to risk my PC going there.
Right, and for how long were you guys there? Was it like a short trip, a couple of weeks, or were?
That
How long
was
was it?
like very different from the different people. Like I think Scrub Noob was there maybe like 2.5 months. I was there 3 months. Elo Santa and Pussy Poo was there 1 month. I think Elite also extended his trip, so he was like 2 months. So it was like very different, and there kept coming like new people. So it was really nice to meet different people. Like it kept swapping out who you're meeting with.
But that trip, that was mostly just to play solo queue with like to be in a good environment with good opposition, right? But
Yeah.
was there any like coaching going on at the same time, or was it just solo queue?
There was no coaching going on. It was just drinking and playing solo queue for all of us, I think.
It sounds fun, at least.
Yeah, it was.
All right, I'm not gonna ask for any stories from nights out drinking, but yeah. So you came back, and you're part of DMG already by then, or?
I think I can't remember like how the timing was. I think maybe I already got back or something, or I wasn't playing at least when I was in Korea. So, or like I wasn't playing with DMG. I don't remember exactly how it was, but I remember coming back after at least, and then I had expanded my champion pool a little bit. Then playing NLC 3, I think, and then it was changed to the Danish league after.
Right. Yeah. So obviously later when you played in the Danish league, you played with me, Theo, right, on the same
Yes.
team, and I mean you we talked a bit about it in the previous episode on like the competitive level. How is it for you specifically? Like, did you feel like the Danish league was in a good state, or did you think? You can be honest.
I mean, I can't really compare it to like how it has been or like whatever, but I don't know. I don't think it was really good, to be honest. Like, it's not really fun being up 50 CS every game. I want like competitiveness, and if you're playing against someone that is better than you, maybe they're doing something you can learn from. So if you're basically just stomping every game, it's I don't know. I don't think it's good to the place for improvement or at least not if you are stomping every game.
Right, somebody in chat, Socrates, he just wrote, "Let's be one victor here, Agony."
Yes.
I
Let's
mean,
do that.
yeah, like since you joined competitive league, you've sort of become a one trick on control mages, right?
Yeah, basically.
So you've been a big fan of Victor Syndra. Now recently you picked up Oriana, right?
Yeah, a bit
I mean,
SC as well, but
yeah, but how is that for you? Like, do you find it easy to pick up new champions, or do you want to just grind them? Because a lot of people might wonder, like, for when you're at this level, when do you feel ready to bring in new champions into pro play, right?
I mean, of course, there's like different metas, right? Where some strong champions are strong, where you kind of have to adapt. For me, it has been a bit hard because playing Kassadin and Kiana is like just go in, right? But Medius is a bit more chill and slow, so that was like you have to control the waves way more. When you play Kiana Kassadin, you don't really control anything. So that was like pretty hard to learn, I feel. But when you start getting like the basics of mages, then it's of course easier to get more champs into the pool.
Can I ask what well, since you played solo queue, you did like Kiana Kassadin, which are very different from Victor, Syndra, Oriana.
Yeah.
What did you prefer, and what do you prefer? Do you still prefer the aggressive type with Kiana Kassadin, or have you?
I mean,
yeah.
I have been on both sides, right? I have been the one choking people. I have been the Kiana getting choked out by an Azir where you can do absolutely nothing. So when I play mages, I'm just having fun over how bad I know the opponents are feeling when they can't do anything. that is basically the fun I get on mages, and yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I see.
Right.
But I mean, of course, it's funny to go in always, right? So.
I feel that.
I'm not sure how happy my coach will be if I pick out Cassidy in first pick.
Well, knowing how people tend to do some research on how these champions function and what counters them, I think just a B1 Cassidy, you're not gonna play the game, man.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, you've obviously made this big step. Like we've given you the opportunity to play in NLC Div1 because we feel like, at least from our point of view, from us who are behind the scene, we feel like you are ready to take that step, and you are now in that situation, right? You've had this road from solo queue all the way up to NLC. But we sort of now, I want to drag it a bit back to Duckling here, because I feel like we caught off right in the middle of your journey into being a caster on NLC Div1, right? Because you went from casting in these amateur events, you did that Red Bull tournament as well, or
yeah, Red Bull solo queue, but that's way later. That's way later.
That's way later. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, I think I was still 16, 15. It was while I was 15 I got into the League Championship Denmark, which was back then the Danish National League. That was before the whole NLC ecosystem and anything, so it was a bit weird. I think Challenger mode had the right to the tournaments that qualified you for EU Masters that just started up around the time. But the tournament with prestige in it in Denmark was still League Championship Denmark, which was arranged by Leagues.gg. And through the contact I got with a guy called Jesper Daedalus, if anyone remembers him, that's old school. He stopped casting years ago. He was the first one to really take me under his wing. I can't remember exactly how I got into contact with him, but he had previously worked for Leagues.gg casting LCD, or League Championship Denmark, and he wanted to get back into that, and he said he could probably get me along with him. So he did. We just pulled up to a Discord call one day with some guy who was many years past leagues management, who very quickly just said, "Yeah, sure, we can get you back on." And I was also allowed to go on the show. And my first time was in studio with someone called Theodore, who I believe is still working in league somehow. He's not casting anymore, but if you've been in the Danish scene for years, you know Theodore. He was a caster for many years here. But the thing about him, obviously, him being I think 10 years older than me, he was also at the time I was a very late bloomer in terms of my growth as height specifically. I was maybe like 165 at that time or something, or he was nearly 2 meters. So when I pulled into the studio, we couldn't get both of us on frame exactly because otherwise his hair would have to be cut off. And that it was a long story, but the main point was when I got on broadcast, people thought I was was it bring your kid to work day? What was going on here? There was a lot of memes about that. I did get memed quite hard when I came into the community. I wasn't obviously too good. It was a very quick jump from amateur tournaments in English to going to the first time casting League of Legends in Danish. And also there was a pretty decent community at that time for the Danish league. I think we were having about 200, 300 viewers on average per stream. So that was, this core community. And to bring in someone who to them was way too young, inexperienced, they didn't like that decision. And they had previously had a guy, I think his name was Slickduel, who they didn't like, who was, pretty much the same as me back then, except for he was also a bit of a dick and I wasn't. So they were very judgmental in the beginning. And I remember that. I didn't get many good words, but, I loved what I was doing and I enjoyed it. And I kept working on getting better. And, the league community really did see that. And they started to accept me because, I wasn't here for fun. I was here because, this was what I liked to do. And I wanted to be better at it. And now we're at, 2019 to 2020. This was when we changed to Tell Esports Series Denmark. And this is when I had my, big shot because they needed a more established casting crew. Originally, a lot of casters came and went after maybe a split or two. And it was Theodore and Haha XD, and then Guldborg had to find a new play-by-play because Nico, who he normally cast with, couldn't do it. So he reached out to a couple of other guys and had some options. He also reached out to me because I'd been in the scene for a year and a half maybe then. And despite me being very rough around the edges, I was very bad back then considering what I am now. But at the time, I thought I was doing a pretty good job. But he saw the potential and said, fuck it, I'll work with this kid and we'll turn him into something decent. And that was my real chance. And I remember the nerves in particular on my first day because now we were in the studio. It was official. The pay had gone up. The prestige around the tournament had gone up. Everything around it just changed. It was a big thing, big thing. And, the nerves really hit me because I was standing here with Guldborg, who I had admired for a year and a half. He had already cast EU Masters at that point, and we were joking about him getting on the LEC back then. And I shit the bed on the first day. I fucked up the opening. I fucked up the first big in-game call as well with Astralis Talent up against Fling Esport. I completely fumbled it. Other than that, I was just all right. But at that point, I remember, it was a fantastic day for doing this, but I just really didn't do well. So, me and him bot reviewed for the next week. I thought it can't go any worse than the first week. So, the nerves slowly but surely disappeared as I felt more comfortable in my role, taking this big step up to a new level. And with all the things Guldborg had taught me throughout the week and all the time we spent on it, it just clicked and I just started performing way better. And the league community really noticed that. And I got a lot of praise from the chat, like, holy shit, he's improving so much and so quickly. And a lot of that is thanks to my own hard work, but also the hard work Guldborg put into me because he spent many hours VOD reviewing with me, just going over the games, going over all the things you need to do as a caster. And from that point onward, I was really guided under his wing for a year, maybe. And that's when I was old enough to work with Red Bull for Red Bull Solo Queue, which he got me into as well. And then a couple of years ago, it all just exploded. That was when he got into the LEC regularly. I got my first guest div cast on NLC Div 2 in 2022. Then from that one guest cast, I somehow snuck myself into EU Masters as the youngest caster ever, which is probably still the proudest I've been of an achievement I've made. Working with Riot Games, that was fantastic. And then in summer, I got to guest on NLC Div 1. I flew down to Berlin. I got to work with these amazing, talented people week in, week out. It was fantastic. And then, a lot of things changed coming into 2023 with NLCs scaling back. But, long story short, leagues got the reins. They didn't have much to work with, but they went to me because they knew, I was good and I was reliable. They knew I was good to work with as well from that time they've worked with me. And while a lot of around the league changed, they wanted to offer me a spot, and I took it, and that's how I got into NLC Division 1. Obviously, last year, I will say, I don't think I had a good year last year. I wasn't the best caster. I've been better. And also, I spent a lot of time on my studies as I was about to graduate in half a year. So I didn't spend as much time VOD reviewing. I didn't spend as much time, finding the stories of a league and telling them. And it wasn't a good casting year for me last year, but I did get to do NLC Div 1 regularly. They still wanted me back this year, and this year I have the time, I have the ability to commit more, and I think already I've reached higher highs than I did in all of 2023 in terms of casting. So yeah.
I mean, it just like your journey. You talk about a lot of these instances where you improve constantly, right? The help you've gotten. I think most people are to some degree familiar with how players prepare themselves for games and how they improve, right? It's this scrim, it's solo queue environment, and maybe some one-to-one coaching, and there are multiple things, but most people have heard about this, right? But as a caster, how do you prepare yourself? How do you sort of practice? How do you because I think it's not a as known environment to the public, so
it's I think initially, now I don't know as much about how the players train, but I imagine it's kind of the same. Obviously, we don't have solo queue we go in and practice too, but we sometimes do practice cast. I haven't done one in a while, to be honest, but that's because I'm casting regularly at the moment with the NLC. So I am keeping myself in shape in that way. And then what you would do afterwards is watch it back, VOD review, just like a player would VOD review their game. I would instead be listening to what I'm saying. Is this the right point to make? Are there any objectives coming up on the map that might be important to highlight? Because there's no reason for me to go into Ag0nypain background as a player if in 30 seconds time the Elder Drake will be deciding the game. Then we need to sort of talk about that. How are the teams gonna fight? Obviously, that's my color's job to tell me about who am I to need to look forward to. Do I need to look at Ag0nypain because he has the ability to one-shot the opponent's carry in the upcoming fight, or these things? But there is kind of a rule book to do a good League of Legends cast. And that's what you're practicing for, looking at, am I doing a right job? And you'd also look at, for example, the fights to go, okay, did I yell too much for this first blood? Was it that good? Or how much does this matter for the game? Obviously, I have to be good at reading the game state because I need to know what does this mean for the game. If a jungler gets killed at 15 minutes, it's not that big of a deal. But if we're at the 25-minute mark and a jungler gets picked off, this is a very big kill because this could lead into a Baron. This could then lead into snowballing the game, or around an Elder Drake fight. If someone gets picked off, that also matters much more. So that's a lot of just watching competitive League of Legends in general and looking back at the games you're casting. And then I also have this notebook. I write notes down in this from things. I have had a couple times back in Telia Esports Series Denmark that I forgot the players of the team. So I've written them down here as well. Every game I do that. And then I have some documents as well digitally where I have the big information stacks because I don't want to write that much info in hand. I have a bad handwriting. But I have my small notes, the rosters. If there anything major I need to keep an eye out for, and I can have this open while we're on broadcast. But other than that, I have a document where I write down the backstories of each players. I research, I see what I can find. Obviously, having been in the scene for quite a while, I often remember many of the names, and that makes it easier. For example, having watched someone like Theodore come into the competitive scene, Ag0nypain come into the competitive scene, I have that advantage of having watched the players from the beginning, and I'm able to take that storyline into the stream and feed it into the players to put a face, so they don't just see the name Ag0nypain, but they know more about where he started, how he has grown, and how he has now made it into the NLC Div 1.
Yeah, I just remembered something we were talking about before we went live, actually. And so I'm just going to throw this curveball because Theodore mentioned that you were there at the start of his sort of career, right? And like just to put it into perspective, right? How did you like sort of work on Theodore as a preparation before your first I don't know if have you casted Theodore before, or
I think I casted him in the RPS this spring, right?
Yeah,
and so from DMG, and I mean for some tournaments it's easier to prepare than others. For example, for NLC RPS, it is a bit harder because at the national level there isn't too much info about the players. But now, for example, this year for the NLC, when the people are taking the step up from NLC, Div 2, or the regional leagues, it's a bit easier because I have more info to work off. But from someone like Theodore, it was more like the name rung a bell after Red Bull Solo Queue. For example, for Red Bull Solo Queue, I can't prep anything. I don't know the players that are playing there before I go into the office in Aarhus with Red Bull. And then we look at who's participating in the tournament. Are there any names I remember having watched earlier for the past years or Danish leagues? And then obviously someone will surprise. Last year it was Theodore, who was one of the big surprises, who very quickly qualified for the LAN tournament. And when you do that, even though I wasn't sure if he was going to play competitively, when I then saw the DMG roster for the NLC RPS, I instantly, I remember Theodore from here. And then I had that to work from the broadcast. Obviously, it isn't everything, but having these knowledge bombs is nice to have, and it gives me an image of the fact that, okay, if Theodore is able to perform well in a 1v1 environment for Red Bull Solo Queue, he is likely someone who I could look at in lane and say he should be able to, at the very least, go even in lane and maybe even win, because he has a lot of extra practice in just these hard 1v1 matchups where that's the full focus. And then obviously as the tournament develops, maybe that's not the right picture I have initially, but I have something to go out of, and I have something to add to Theodore's character when we go on broadcast.
I mean, you talked about like how you as a caster, you didn't watch a lot of pro play just to like imagine how you would cast it, right? If I understood you correctly, because that goes a bit into the practice and see how other people cast it, right? And a lot of VOD review. I mean, it is, at least in my eyes, a lot like how coaches do some self-improvement, right? Because at least for me specifically, I tend to watch a lot of pro play, right? Watch VODs and stuff, and then I try to, during those VODs of professional play at least, make up my mind before I go see any other streamers what their what their thought process is around situations, right? So I guess it's kind of similar when you watch pro play, at least, right?
Yeah, to some degree. Obviously, it's not always watch with audio on, but just watching a lot of pro play helps me be able to read the game state. That is crucial to read that correctly as a caster. And then, when I had the time, for example, when I was in school, I never really got the chance to watch it with audio on because I was sitting in class watching LPL or something. But that was more the game state again. But, when I'm at home and I watch LEC or LCS or whatever with audio, I sometimes think, okay, so they had this information here, or they wanted to do this. And I kind of think about what they are doing and would I do the same? What are they probably thinking? Obviously, this is easier to do if, for example, I'm reviewing with Middlecut, because those things help a lot when I can then hear Middlecut say, yeah, I did this because I had this thought process. Or when we review my VODs, I have to think about, okay, why was I doing this here? Like, what was my thought process about maybe adding this extra sentence to this call, or ending it, or focusing on this player or whatever, right? So it's important to watch others do your craft, I think, and also VOD review with others, because if I VOD review my own stuff alone, I wouldn't be gaining much from it because I did this. Obviously, I think it's going to be good. I make mistakes. I make a lot of mistakes, and I can catch some of them, but having two neutral eyes on it as well, and ears for casters, you could say, definitely help as well to notice things you didn't notice.
I just want to sort of also specify that you, in my eyes at least, you go under the role of play-by-play caster, right? For people who doesn't know this sort of different caster roles, do you mind explaining it?
So it is very simple when you really get to know it. There is two main casters when you see casting. It is normally two people. It is one play-by-play, which is the guy who yells whenever plays are happening, who is telling you what is happening right now on your screen and adding the energy and excitement to it. While you have the other guy, who is the color caster. There might be two of those if you're having a tri-cast. then there would be 2 color casters, and their job is to tell you why things are happening, but not what is happening. So, for example, if I have just called a Baron fight, and some things happened during that Baron fight, when there was the replay or afterwards, if you're on the NLC, let's say Aragon or Foxtrot would then, after I'm done yelling, start to explain why this fight went the way it did. Maybe Ag0nypain was able to get a good scatter the week off on 2 carries, which started the fight off well and got them down to half HP, or Shift was able to get a steal off here, or he sneaked around Vision or something. They are the ones to explain why things are happening or why things had a certain outcome.
So obviously, I would imagine your aspiration is to one day, hopefully, we'll see you get to cast Worlds, right? That would be the aspirations for most casters, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Worlds is the ultimate goal, right? There is obviously the industry at the moment has had a rough time, and I think it has become harder to climb because there are less spots in total, and also the industry hasn't felt too safe. I mean, my goal is definitely to make it down to the LEC studio one day. That's the next step, I think, going down there either for EMEA Masters quarterfinals or finals or whatever, or guesting the LEC. And before I dream too high, obviously the ultimate goal would be to cast at Worlds. I want to take the next step, and the reason I'm mainly focusing on that is because after 2023, where I didn't really do anything outrageous in terms of performance, I do want to scale it back a bit in my own head and not be too optimistic and just focus on the next goal ahead of me, which for me is to cast a final in the NLC as a play-by-play. I'm not doing that in spring. I won't be leaking who's casting that. It's not me. But the goal is to do that for summer, and then make my way back on EMEA Masters, and then hopefully get to cast an EMEA Masters game that requires me to go down to the studio in Berlin.
Well, like you sort of mentioned it, and that was sort of gonna be my next question, but I wanted to dive a bit deeper into this, but because like recently, I think most people have noticed that Riot did a massive layoff with a lot of people within their ecosphere, right? And as you mentioned, it has hit on some opportunities, right? It has made it a bit harder, but I can imagine like a lot of people want to go onto those big broadcasts, right? But have you ever thought about the possibilities, or maybe engaged a bit and tried to check the avenues into like some of those smaller sort of broadcasts like LPL and LCK, because those English broadcasts are at least in production-wise smaller than LEC and LCS.
Yeah, that is true, and obviously, I've thought about it, but it's never a route that I was fully engaged in. I think if I was going to go away from focusing on League of Legends in Europe, it would probably to go toward football, to be honest with you, because I still have a big passion for that as well. I watch a ton of it, and obviously football is way more professional than the esports sense is, in terms of if I want to become a commentator in football, I would have to have a journalist degree in Denmark, and then I would have to grind my way up to commentate the big games there. But that's also a route I would love to go if esport doesn't work out. But obviously, esports has now been a big part of my life for 5 years as an esports caster, and I don't think I'm done here by any means. I have more that I know that I can reach and I want to reach. It requires me to work hard. It requires a bit of luck as well. I think esport requires that as well. Being at the right place at the right time. But you don't get anywhere if you don't spend the hours and have the drive, because in such a cutthroat industry, there is always someone who will work a bit harder than you, and they could very quickly just overtake you in the fast lane because they are grinding twice as hard or thrice as hard. I'm not advocating for overworking yourself. I don't do that myself. It's important to have time to also be mentally all right, so you don't play solo queue for 18 hours a day, or just only focus about what could I say in this scenario of a game, and just watch 10 hours of League of Legends gameplay every day as a caster. But it is important to spend your time wisely, make enough prep and make sure you are confident when you're about to go on stage. Because if not, I don't think your performance will be there, and it gets harder to reach those goals.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about this not overworking people. I mean, just to bring Agony a bit back into this, because as a coach, like previously, I've always had this idea that you like I don't want my players to grind 18 hours of solo queue every day, right? It makes no sense because at some point you will start to lose focus and your games become meaningless, right? And just to make it more sort of time effective, you should try to focus on having more meaningful games instead of spamming games, right? And just to keep your sort of mental health and just having the good habit and attitude towards practice, right? Like that goes for any sport. You can't grind too hard because you will overwork yourself. And like Agony, I mean, Theodore, you can weigh in on this as well. Like, how do you guys practice solo queue? How many hours do you throw into this? And like, how do you think around this thought process of making games more meaningful and making it more effective?
I mean, for me personally, I have been in the trap where I have played way too much. When I was done with my HF, I don't know what is that is called in English, but when I was done with school, basically, I had like 2-3 years where I just sit on my chair. I wake up, I sit in my chair, I play all fucking day till I go sleep again. I did this for like 3 years with not one single break. I'm not showing up for my grandparents' silver wedding. I'm just sitting there playing all day long. Because as Duckling also said, if someone is working twice as hard as you, sure, it is his spot. So I want to be the one working twice as hard, because I want to be the best. So if that's what I thought it would require to like just sit all day and play. But I also have found out that it can be really, really hard for the mental. Because you just sit and stone all day.
Yeah, I agree to some extent. Of course, you have to be like mentally prepared to be the one to work the hardest if you really want to achieve the goal of becoming one of the greats and becoming a great respected player. Of course, you're going to have to work harder than the average league player in the elo. So for sure, the grind is a big focus. For me, it was when I reached Challenger. The motivation just from there, just playing like 10, 12 games a day to keep grinding and just keep going with the wave, right? But also like I think for me at least I value a lot of like like sports and workouts as well to also kind of get myself out there and not just like be frozen in front of the screen for 12 hours a day. So maybe I would play 4 hours, then I would go work out or go play badminton, which I played a lot, and then I would get back on the grind with a clearer mindset. So for me, I value the physical aspect of the game as well as the mental. But yeah, I for sure you shouldn't play 16 hours a day and drop everything. Like, don't talk to your family, don't talk to your friends. That doesn't sound really healthy in any way.
It's not.
And I can hear that. I can
I
agree
mean,
to me on that.
I literally went to my doctor because I felt so bad mentally, and I was at like psychiatrist speaking and shit like that because I just felt bad.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
that's really something you have to take quite serious, right?
Definitely.
As soon as you feel something and you start to like maybe your mood will go down and you don't have the energy to do a lot of things except for playing a league and maybe you're eating less. That should really be the number one priority for sure.
I mean, there is a stigma about esports players, which I sort of hate, because I think that if you want to be a really good sort of esports competitor, you need to have a good diet, you need to work out, because all of this actually factor into how well you actually play at the computer, right? Because you still need those hand-eye coordination to be on top, right? And that is a physical aspect. You cannot just rely on just, hey, I have a talent for pressing buttons on computer. Like if you want to be the best at something and be at a competitive level, you need to work every avenue that can give you a small advantage and build on top of that, right? And I think also like the sort of the way you treat solo queue, you should treat it at least a bit smarter, where you try to practice smarter instead of just practicing twice as much as the next player, right? You need to combine a bit of both. Like instead of doing the 18 hours of solo queue every day where you just put in the games without thinking, you can do like 6 to 8 solo queue games a day and then try to VOD review some of it and take a break in between, take a walk, because you need to like have your physical also in a good shape at least, right? And it affects your mental. Yeah, sorry, Duckling.
But I really do agree with you. I think it's a fine balancing act between working hard but also working smart, because you can't just spend, as you say, too many hours on it. And if you have other difficulties in life and you just completely ignore those to keep playing League of Legends or keep up your own cast or whatever, it will all of a sudden just catch up to you, and it will take up a lot of your mental, right? And sometimes you do have to prioritize. You can sometimes have to. I've said no to things because of casting. I was supposed to go to my friend's from boarding school's big 18th birthday, when a week before NLC asked if I wanted to fly down and be a guest on their show. And I knew this was a big opportunity, and I had to take that instead of going to my friend's party. And sometimes you have to do those priorities, but it is a balance, a balancing act, and it's a fine line to walk, because if you don't have things in order in your real life, you won't be able to have it in your gaming life as well. Like when I had too many school studies and it wasn't going the way I wanted to because I was spending too much time on casting, my casting all of a sudden started to lag as well. And I had to make the decision to, deprioritize casting for half a year, a bit more, to focus on rounding out my studies correctly, spending the time I needed on my assignments and homework. And I mean, my grades improved dramatically when I did that in school. And I managed to leave with a very nice average in grades, thanks to the extra time I invested in that. And obviously, that has hurt me a bit in casting. But had I spent my time continually trying to just overwork myself on both things, it wouldn't have worked out. And had I continued prioritizing the casting, well, maybe I would have done better in my casting work. But I think then maybe I wouldn't have been satisfied with where I was in my real life, because I would have down prioritized my school so much that I would have been now sitting with a degree that wasn't as good as I know it could have been, because I deprioritized it too much.
I mean, it's just like it's become sort of a meme, but you sort of need to go out and touch some grass from time to time.
you really do.
Yeah, and it's just if you do not find any sort of enjoyment in other aspects of your life because they're going poorly, I mean, as you said, it just will reflect back on you what you're trying to do in esports, right? If you're a coach, if you're a player, if you're whatever, because I mean, mental health is a big thing. It's not something you can just push under the rug and forget about, right?
Yes. It
All
really
right.
isn't. Yeah.
I mean, we have talked for a while, and I feel like I don't want this episode to go on for too long, right? I don't want that 3-hour podcast episodes. So I want to, like, before we start wrapping things up, I want to look at one thing, and it's that weekly recap, or bi-weekly, depends on how often we do this episode, of the Danish league. So, right. I'm gonna try to send a link to our producer, and hopefully he can put it up on stream.
Yeah.
I was not smart enough to do this beforehand. I'm sorry for audience, producer, and guests, but hopefully we can look at this together, because at the top, as soon as he pulls it up,
You shouldn't say at the top, right? But
second to
well,
the
I
top,
do,
least.
because
It's
I
close to
think
least.
the way we talked about it last time, it's
Oh, that's DMG Esports DK right at the top. That's what I'm seeing at the earliest when I open it up. I mean, second to top, right?
I mean, second to top,
Yeah,
because
but
the
second
big
to
thing,
top.
the big
Chat
thing is
first
that
place.
we didn't value K5 as highly last time we talked about them, but they are, in fact, at the top.
yeah, I would say, and I have said this to others before, I still think you need to kind of wait with a conclusion on K5 being a top contender team. For sure, they have showed something by defeating these teams, but yeah, there's still a lot of matches to be played, and uh, for sure, if they're making it work by doing what they do, they should just keep doing it right. And huge shout out for that. But I still think like there's a lot of matches still to be played, and I would be surprised if K5 could keep this performance up. I really would.
Yeah, I mean, they've had at least a good start, and I would be surprised if they at least doesn't make playoff at the moment. Because yeah, sure, it's a double round robin. We have to play every team in a BO1 twice, but still going off the bat with 4-0, it's a really good start. And from like our experience with other teams, those we have faced, I think like they should be a playoff team. I can't remember. Do you remember, Theo, if it was top 4 or top
It was
6?
top 4. No,
Top
top
4.
4. Yeah.
So the top 4. I mean, I think it's definitely us, of course, right? Who would the other who would the other teams be that gets to the playoff, right? That would be
Well, if I had to make a top 4 right now, I would of course put us at the top, right? Dusty would be up there. They have been talking some trash about the league, but you gotta give it to them. The roster looks pretty good. They did lose the game to Bimsebenten after talking shit on Twitter. So that was really funny. But I still think Dusty is for sure a top 4 contender and playoff contender. I would say we only played 4 games, right?
yeah.
I have to give a shout out to Bimsebenten actually, which comes as a surprise because looking at the roster before we started, I knew none of the players. And they played CSD last split, and they promoted from CSD, if I remember correctly. And they're just they won 2 and lost 2 games, and they played against the top teams, right? They played against us. They played against Dusty. So yeah, I
They
think
beat
Bimsebenten will
Dusty.
be.
Like they beat
Yeah,
Dusty.
they beat Dusty. Yeah.
But
Um,
you mentioned before we went live that they might have played with a sub in mid lane, Dusty,
yeah,
or
yeah. Dusty played with the sub in mid lane who went like 0-6 on Sia, I think. So I don't know. You can't really say that they're bad, and
Yeah.
and the one talking trash on Twitter was the mid lane Legions, and unfortunately can't really like put it against him when he didn't play the game, right? So
Yeah. For anybody wondering, he called the LCD a retirement league. So
Retirement league. Damn.
Yeah.
No way he did us like that.
so
That's actually insane.
I can't wait until we face them because I feel
for
like
sure.
as the previous champions of LCD, we need to show them at least that hey, there are still some competitive teams there, right?
Yeah. And then I think, well, we have DMG, Bimsebenten, and Dusty. I don't really want to throw a 4th name out there right now. K5 for sure is looking good, and you have to put some respect on going 4-0 for sure. But I think it's going to be close. I really think it is. But yeah, right now it's looking a lot like K5 will will
I
take
have a
the spot.
question though about our Danish league. Last time on the NLC RPS, I get embarrassed by the level of our league. But what about this time?
Okay.
Are we
The
good?
thing is, we should be in a much better state, at
Okay,
least
good.
our like speaking from our perspective, because like last split we had some insanely individual players, right? Some of them with more experience than others. But the thing is, there wasn't too much scrimming going on, right? So there you can't say that we've sort of figured out where our weaknesses were, and when we go up against like the best teams from every region, you tend to face teams that are at the competitive level. They've scrimmed a lot. They've figured out what works for them, what doesn't, so they are smarter about how they want to play it, right? Tom Kick, shut up. Now we have this Danish roster which I do have insane amount of faith in. Just because, like, hey, we are indeed screaming a lot, and we have a really good process going here with developing talent with this team, and we already see improvement in a lot of aspects. Like, there is a reason we are giving. Well, you'll see during this week. I don't want to talk too much about it, but I do honestly believe like there is something good going on with this team, and for sure some of these names should appear at a higher tier in the future.
I would say, going back to the question about the level of the league, last year the level was really low. We talked about this in the last episode, where the general level was very low, and then there was like two teams. There was our team, and there was Garden Gaming. Havoc kind of came in the last second and made a miracle playoff run, nearly kicked Garden Gaming out of getting a chance at RPS. But DMG and Garden went to the RPS. Nobody won it, but I would say now we haven't played against Dusty yet, but the general level in the league this year is higher than last year, and we will see when we scrim Dusty, who looks to be the better team in the league if you don't count us, in my opinion. If they have like the level of Garden Gaming last year.
I mean, if Dusty is in fact as good as we think they are, then they've sort of slotted into Garden's gaming competitive level, right? So the top is equally strong as last split, but the bottom has for sure raised its level. Yeah. So it is a bit more competitive than last split. Where I mean, if Dusty came in last split and called the league a retirement league, then I would have less to the comment on it.
Well, now that we are talking about the bottom of the league, and I just really want to shout out Colleague Esports and Havoc Esport for not having won a single game yet.
Oh man, that's disrespectful. Don't do them like that.
I would have to say I'm really great friends with everyone on the Havoc team. So
yeah, not anymore, mate. Not when you're doing that.
Calling them out is really funny here. And they had just to protect them a little bit, they had really close games. They played like 3 40-minute games. So I would say they would have to win some games eventually, right? And Calling Esport, who we rated quite high, we did like a tier list before the season started. We rated them higher than both Havoc and Bimse Benton and OB. For them to go 0-4 is, well, I have seen a lot better performances from them at least. So yeah, I just want to give them a quick shout out down there.
Right, and as we are on the shout out train, let's also shout out our sponsor Global Connect and Kia for helping us.
Gotta get that in there.
I forgot in the beginning, but I just had to get it out there right now. I'm sorry, but it is what it is. Really appreciate our sponsors. Thank you very much. Right, if there is any questions from our viewers today, like this is a chance, write what you want to ask me, Duckling, Theodore, or Ag0nypain, whatever it might be, and we will do our best to answer it. If you have no questions, that is also okay. I noticed that we don't have the viewer count we had last time around, but hopefully we'll get an equal amount of VOD viewers. Is DMGDK winning one game at RPS this time?
Well, we won one last year. We did.
Yeah,
win
time
one
to get
last
better,
year.
guys.
I don't
Look,
want to.
Theodore, before you go on, right, next RPS, please do inform me about how good you actually think you are, completely honest, because this time I don't want to be betting my pride and everything I stand for to lose,
Yeah.
because I looked at your roster last year and I thought, yeah, surely this is top 2 easily.
Yeah.
We're gonna beat the Swedes, and then you guys just lost hope. Luckily, Garden Gaming saved me a bit, but I was counting on you guys. So next time, let me know if you're shit beforehand, right?
I mean,
I will DM you.
I
will
don't
DM
I don't mind being the imposter here and just making sure you sing once again the best anthem, national anthem in the Nordic countries.
Look,
but
man, come on, don't do that to me.
no, but honestly, I think we'll hopefully have a better showing this time around if we go to the RPS.
We will. We will.
Pride is also asking a question here. Duckling, who is your favorite person to see on the interviews on NLC, sorry.
Oh, that's a tough question. I mean, we aren't that far into this, but I mean, we're actually almost at the halfway point tomorrow. But I liked Rusty Sniper last year. I think he had some fun in the interviews. We also had Pride from Domino or DMG now. Last year he did some great stuff. I think didn't he go out in the snow last year? I remember when they finally won or something. And then obviously we have the man Don Jake who just cooks up the craziest interviews. Sometimes I'm not sure they're appropriate for broadcast, but that's the fun in it, right? Never knowing what happens when he shows up. He also did some crazy stuff. There's a lot of people I like in the interviews. I think some players don't take full advantage of the fact that they do get to be in interviews, especially with ag0nypain. If there's anyone you could have a fun, crazy interview with, it is him. So to the players who are coming on, please just, showcase your personalities. Do the best. It is also marketing for yourself. And, the viewers like when someone have a bit of personality. Don't force it. Don't do anything fake. If your genuine reaction is calmness, that's completely fine. But if you're down to do something crazy or maybe go a bit out there with some of the statements you make, if you feel confident in that or whatever you want to say, have fun with it, enjoy it, and be yourself.
I mean, to be honest, I think a lot of players are sort of, just to comment on what you said, sort of, they don't take advantage of the situation when they're called upon in an interview, because that is a way to market yourself, your team, the scene, and you can get a lot of fan engagement that way. And I think that is a smart thing to do, especially if you want to go and continue building on your sort of resume in the esports, right? You need those fan engagement. I mean, this is a sort of ecosystem that is built on how much people want to watch you, right? And just creating your online personality with a tool like interview, I mean, it's a smart opportunity to take.
And especially now that we have ag0nypain. I know last year we were a bit strapped on the budget, so we were no host in the spring split. And even though our games were cut to 4 games, we were, as a caster, you were very overworked because you had just spent maybe 40 minutes focusing on the game. We only had 5-minute breaks between them. So the interviews did kind of get deprioritized from the caster side in some sense, because we had to focus on the most crucial part, which was the game. But this year we now have a full-on desk. Those who are on the desk, we spent time preparing for it. We love doing it. It's fun. I like to do the desk when I have the time and energy to put into it. Ashram loves to do interviews, loves to host, and the facilities we have per se for you guys to come in and just have fun and do your best on the interview and make good content is there now. So there is now a good opportunity to really showcase whatever you want to showcase about yourself on the interviews.
Yeah, this last comment, just clip it, send it to every NLC Div 1 players. They should be aware of this, but hopefully we'll get some funny interviews going forward, because I think interviews are good.
They really are.
Place to at least make some banter and some engagement, right? I mean, it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be toxic or any animosity, but you can make some funny comment about some people and then just create some narrative, right? Create something
Exactly.
that
Yeah.
more people wants to watch your games, right? I'll go swimming if we get playoffs. Pride says it's cold up here.
Yes. Look, I like that idea. I also already said it in my preseason statement on our bold or broke segment on the first day. I thought you guys had a chance of sneaking into playoffs, but you need to start winning soon. I also said Ag0nypain was going to be in heavy contention for the Rookie of the Split award. That can still happen. No pressure, because I think you're at the point where pressure shouldn't be there anymore. Just go out there, do your best. But if things work out, anything can happen. And then maybe you need to go swimming, Pride.
Right. As we wrap this up, I just want to ask you a question because you said you weren't gonna be casting on the finals, right? Because that has already been set. But can we, like, hopefully, can any Danish fans and any of us see you on the game box if you're going there?
I don't know yet. I don't think I'm going to Gamebox. I won't be going there unless I have some business to do there in terms of my job. We had one year where we had Red Bull solo queue there. That was the Ag0nypain year, if you want to brand it as that. We were at Gamebox, the big final. It was a fun event, but I know Red Bull now have their own gaming sphere in Aarhus, and they really like that one. It is also a nice facility, so understandably so. But who knows, if anything pops up that gives me a good reason to be there in association with my job, I will. But if not, Herning is quite far away from Nestel, so I won't just go there for the fun of it.
Okay, okay. Well, hopefully you'll get a good reason to be there so we can see you, because hopefully we will go there as we go to the offline playoffs, as it will be at the game box, and as we said last time, it has already been confirmed for next split as well. So yeah, it's gonna be fun. Right. Thank you, Duckling. Thank you, Ag0ny, for being here today. Thank you, Theo, for once again showing up when I call upon you. And
Anytime.
thank you guys for watching. Have a great evening.